Family, school is in session.
And teachers are talking.
Join us as we love to entertain, enlighten, and inform you of the exciting things
that make teachers talk.
Let's have a conversation
about teaching practices and loving those pumpkins.
That sounds good. We can talk about anything.
And don't forget,
we encourage you to listen
when a teacher talks.
That's right. We encourage you to listen when a teacher talks. We encourage you to listen when a politician talks. We encourage you to listen when people talk. And a lot of talking has been going on, but not a lot of listening. So this is Mr. Foggo on our last show. We want to thank the Bermuda Union of Teachers, founded in 1919 by Reverend Rufus Starver, Ms. Ada Tucker, Miss Edith Crawford, and Miss Matilda Crawford.
Sponsoring this hour in which we love to entertain, enlighten, and inform you of all the things that make teachers talk.
That's right. We are now on live on Facebook. Our last show, though, you can go to the Teacher Talk live show, and when we are gone, you can listen to the replays. Teacher Talk Live. I am Dean Foggo alongside
Michelle Laylor.
Michelle, I was laughing because I was going to say I'm Michelle Laylor because I'm reading it. See, we have who do we have as our guest today, Michelle?
We have for an encore Shayna Duncan and Dr. Duncan.
Excellent.
We thought it fitting to have our last show to end with these two.
We have to. We had to, yes, because of the richness of the conversation. It made you think and even challenge some of your thoughts. You know,
and viewers, and they were a viewer favorite.
Yes, that's key.
You didn't tell me that. That's nice to know.
That's key. Our viewer favorite.
Yes, we already had made up our mind that we wanted to do it, but I did get contacted, and someone did request that they would like to hear you guys.
So you're back here again, live. So welcome.
Back again. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Nice to see you, John.
Nice to see you. I'm having a little sneezing thing going on here. I don't know why, but.
Hi, Dean. Hi, Michelle.
How are you?
Hi, Dean.
Hi, Shayna.
Allergies, maybe.
Perhaps.
Perhaps. Allergies, maybe. So, Dr. John, teachers are talking. Normally, Michelle and I start with that. What are teachers talking about?
Well, you know, Dean, it's the last week of school for students. So I think teachers are talking about winding down in their classrooms and getting things squared away for a completion of the end of the, for the end of the school year, and reports and graduation and all that fun stuff that teachers do. So teachers are talking that actually.
Most definitely.
How about that?
I know my favorite part is the school leaving, or graduation ceremonies, prom. Unfortunately, this year we're not going to have the proms.
Different twist.
Different twist.
Yeah, different twist.
Well, it could be even, you know how you used to have, okay, get your table together, your table of 10, your friends. You can even have like a 2-table prom. Because they can now come together in 20, so you could have your 2-table prom. Oh, I should have pushed that for senior school. Let me call someone from Cedar Bridge. Maybe a 2-table prom.
Right.
And then it's your friends, and it's, you still get the same feel. I may be joking about it, but that's something that could possibly happen. Michelle, you have contacts at Cedar Bridge? 2-table prom?
I'll see what I can do, Dean.
Okay. And I know they listen too also. So yes, it's a time of year where the focus is on moving on to the next stage of life, moving on from where we are now. Many of us have places to go and places to move from. We've seen so much happening in the world. COVID, we've seen so many racial injustices. There are many places that we have to move from. So, Michelle, I don't know if that's where we want to go with the conversation today, but I'm trying to relax. I'm trying to relax.
I see it. I'm looking at it. Definitely. Definitely about endings, new beginnings. And also, I would like to focus on the conversation that Shane and I had, and I was talking about effectiveness. Because you know how we do a lot of things, but
Yeah.
are we effective? Like, are we fulfilling the purpose? Because you could be working hard. It's almost like a hamster on a hamster wheel. You know, that hamster is running and it's running fast, but it's going absolutely nowhere.
Absolutely nowhere. It's not connected to any energy source, because you can run in the same place and provide energy. But that's interesting, because that reminds me of, there were some leaders who are, and I try to be a transformational leader. There are some leaders who are transactional leaders. They can just complete tasks. They can complete the task, but they are not effective in change. And I think what we need now are more transformational people, transformational experiences in everything that we do, to ensure that we're not just completing the task, but we are effecting or affect. That's another word, or to say or not to say, Michelle. Effect change or affect change.
We had that one already. You just forgot.
That's one that I have the most problem with. I've got
one effect. The effect right there, the effect, that's a noun, tends to be a noun, and effect tends to be a verb, but it can't be interchanged. But anyway, let's talk about that. John, Shayna, talk about that, the transformational leader. What does that mean to you? How do you define a transformational leader?
Oh, so when I think of a transformational leader, I think of someone who is first of all, who has empathy, right? And who understands who they are. Because you can't transform, empower, inspire anyone if you're not clear with who you are, what your motives are, your intentions, what your goal and vision is. So for me, those are some of the tenets with transformational leadership. And it's always about empowerment, like knowing where you're going and why you want to go there and how you're going to get there and who's on your team to help you get there. Because you can be that type of leader in and of yourself. Yet if you're not able to convey that to those who are your fellowship, you're going nowhere quite fast. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Shayna. I also want to add to that. Transformational leaders to me also are those who are reflective practitioners. You have to be able to reflect on what you're doing, how you're doing it, why you're doing it. You need to ask yourself a series of questions, a battery of questions, and so that you can evaluate your effectiveness in terms of your engagement, in terms of your influence. So you have to be a what I call a reflective practitioner if you want to be a transformational leader.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. And
I like that term. I like the term reflection, no practitioner. I like that. It's like it's of substance.
I'm writing it down now.
And then when you look at that's funny, Dean. But when you break it down, it means that you are engaged in a series of practicing and becoming evolve to become a transformational leader. It's not a one-day thing, but you're constantly on a journey of reflection, how you're doing, what you're doing, so that you can evaluate your effectiveness as a reflective practitioner.
Yeah, I agree. And even if we think of the word transform, like really, what does it mean to transform? It's to take something and recreate it into something else, right? It's to transform, and that's transformation. And when you're that type of leader, you're taking something and you're inverting it and you're externally moving it into different places. And when we talk about leadership, John and I do a lot of dialoguing about leadership. And one of his favorite leadership authors who I do like as well, John Maxwell, he talks about leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. I know the page number. Okay, that's how I like that, what he talks about in leadership. And so if you are a transformational leader and you understand that leadership is about influence, now influence can be positive and or negative. And that sometimes we don't pay attention to that. But when you are a transformative leader, you're trying to move people from where they are into something else. somewhere else. It's that to become better, and the evolution of what was to what is and what shall become.
Yes,
It's
yes.
like influencer, and that term, that's not even a term, that word is used a lot now. You know, that especially if you have the Instagram platform, you know, that's an influencer. Um, Whatever different types of social media, people get paid now for being an influencer. And I like what you said, Shayna, stressing the point that it's neither positive nor negative, it just is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what drives it really is the intent behind it.
Right.
Yes, the motive and the intent.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which is that's a very key point for any leader. You know, when especially when they're engaged in decision making, or they are enabling to that their goal is to influence. You know, you always have to think of motive and intent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because sometimes motives are pure and sometimes they're not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes your motives are self-seeking and self-gratifying.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when I talked about being reflective, you know, you need to understand yourself. And Shane alluded to that earlier. You know, knowing who you are. You know, leaders have to be strong people within themselves in order to lead effectively.
What does it mean to you leading from the front or leading from the back? Because that was a conversation that I had with a few colleagues, right? And it seems that leading from the front seems more positive than leading from the back. Like, can you define that? Leading from the front or leading from the back? What does that mean to you?
So for me, when I think about it, I go back to the word influence. You can have influence the front, the middle, or the back. It is just who
Mm-hmm.
you are and how you operate. And so leadership from the front gives a certain element of power, and it
Mm-hmm.
demands attention in a specific way. However, you can lead from wherever you are. It is that influence. And when you understand that you have the power of influence, you can lead wherever you are. You know, you don't have to have a position per se. You don't have to have 50 million people. What I find what makes it effective, no matter what position you are in, is to understand how your influence impedes on the organization or the community as a whole, because it does have an effect. And so if you're leading from the middle and your ideologies do not align with those that are ahead of you, then that could be chaotic, or even from the back. So it is, again, understanding your power and how do you use that? Is it in alignment with what is being projected from the front? It is easier, I would say, at times when it is in alignment. Now, if it is counter aligned, then that comes very problematic for the organization, the community, or whatever it is that is taking place in that entity.
Okay.
And when I think about leading from the front, I think about two words. I think about credibility and authenticity. Um, you know, some leaders sometimes are not credible, you know, unfortunately. So when they stand in front of persons whom they lead, they're just not believable, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's this whole notion of, you know, are you authentic? Like, can people really follow you? Can people really trust your leading?
Trust, yes.
Can they trust you with themselves?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big factor.
Yeah, that I concur with you, John. That's huge. And I think sometimes, especially in the time that we're living in now, leadership is considered more of a position than a posture of character. And so I like to think of it as a posture of character. And in that posture of your character, in your position, that is what you bring to the table. You know, you can have the position, you can have the authority. However, if there is very little character, people might go along with you because they have to. And that is something that, you know, there's this term called malicious obedience. People follow, uh, you know, because there's risk involved and they can't afford to go against the grain.
They don't want to get in trouble.
Oh.
Ah,
Or no longer be in that position, right?
Or no longer be in that position.
yeah. And it's funny though, because John and I talk about this.
Sure.
He says that people get fired are typically upset and distraught. And I'm like, really? I actually wear it as a badge of honor. I have been fired so many times, only in Bermuda. I've never been fired in America, only in Bermuda. But each time it helped me to get to where I am now. So I wear it as a badge of honor because I believe, like, as a person who understands my personal power, that in a position, I'm not selling my soul and I'm not giving up my voice. And I think even in leadership, understanding that, like, you have the position, but again, the power, you can manipulate your power, and that then makes it very toxic in the environment. And leadership is something to help people, to guide people from one destination to the next. And I don't think even as a society, we talk enough about leadership, good leadership, effective leadership, and fact up leadership, right? For me, you heard that there, right?
Yeah, jacked up, backed up. Yeah.
It's like the question: would I rather be feared or loved?
Mm,
Right.
Because you're
right.
talking about when you talk about malicious obedience, it's like it's like, I don't want to get in trouble,
Sure.
I need this job. I can't get fired, so you'll do every or anything just to keep it, even
As a
if it
result,
is going against morals and ethics.
Michelle, that's where your credibility comes on the line.
Mhm,
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about. You know what I mean? So you're gonna get a
Well, you know what?
yeah, go ahead.
Talking about credibility, every person that I've known, right,
Yeah.
that has stuck to their in colloquial terms, the guns, or
Yeah.
stuck to their position
Convictions.
of and we're talking about ethics and morals. It may have been hard for them for
Yes.
about for a time, but they
Yes.
always rose above it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Like case in point, something that people know, everyone knows about globally now. It's like Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
At the time,
Correct.
you see,
That's right.
he hasn't been hired yet, but he has still flourished. Like
Yes.
at this time, what he was doing then, that a lot of people were making excuses for, well, I can't do it because such and such and such, or I don't want to get in trouble.
Yes.
Lose my position.
Right.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
don't
want
want
to
to
lose
lose
my
my
money.
position.
Yeah.
I
My
don't want to lose
money.
my money.
Right.
Like all of that time, nothing's happening really right now. I mean, things are coming back, but all those things that people feared now is happening.
Right.
Sure.
Talking about the economy,
Correct.
things of that nature. So he's just one person, but I know people also, other people that when they stuck to it,
Yeah.
talking about social justice, they're talking about their values and their morals. They've always rose above it. And I'm not talking about values and morals necessarily attached to the church or any type of religion.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm talking about the universal values. Taking into consideration people's feelings and that thing you talked earlier, Shane, about empathy.
Mhm.
Those type of things. But how can we teach that to our young people? How we as adults now, some of us have issues with that. How can we transfer that to them to see that, what, it is important to stick to what you believe in if you feel that it is right, and even many a times it's unpopular? How can we teach that to our children? How can we pass that on?
And so I think in teaching, we think of only verbally sharing information. Yet there's this theorist named Albert Bantor. Again, I took from John. He talks about social learning and how learning takes place in a myriad of ways. And one of the tenets of social learning theory is to imitate, right? To follow the example, not just what someone says, but what they do. And so how I think the best way to do that with young people is to lead according to what John talked about, this credibility. You got to have credibility, because this generation, like every generation in its time, didn't listen when they thought those who were before them didn't demonstrate the way they said it. Now, this generation is not as silent as we were with our malicious obedience,
No,
right? They
no.
just come out. And so I think the way that we do that is to really be authentic, to model what it is. And then sometimes to say, you know what, I just don't know about this. I'm still trying to find my way. So let's do this together.
Yeah, because young people learn from observation, what I call observational, through observational learning, right? So that they are observing all the time what we do and how we do it. So, for example, if we as educators believe that learning is a lifelong process, then what is the last course that you enrolled in? What is the last course you enrolled in? I am coordinating. You see what I'm saying? Oh, you know, education is a lifelong process, and we're drilling it with students. But we haven't taken a course since 1984. We graduated from university.
Wow.
Shame on you.
Right.
Shame on you. You understand what I mean? So we have to not only say this thing, but we have to live it. It needs to come out of our pores. We need to believe it and show it and demonstrate it and be it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And that's, no, I was just gonna say that's the type of because you were mentioned earlier about being a type of leader. Are you more interested in being feared or loved? Those are some of the questions I think about as a teacher, and the type of teacher that I want to be, and the type of example that I want to be. And on a regular basis, I have my thing is showing the passion that I have for my subject area, for where I want the students to go. And I try to deliver that on a regular basis. So looking at, and I try to be a transformational leader. I don't want to just be known as I complete things. In my completing things, I want to make a difference. And that is why I love this conversation, where we're looking at this, because there are times when we rise to positions of leadership, and then we just stop. As John says, we don't continue to learn, we don't continue to push learning, we don't expose ourselves to challenges where we have to reflect and we have to think on what we do. That is one thing that I've always been reflective. To sometimes people get irritated with me. We are not even finished the present, and you're talking about next time. Yes, every single time I'm looking at, okay, how can I do it better? How can I be more effective in what we do? And so I'm enjoying this. I'm going to be my reflective practitioner self, and I'm going to sit back and reflect. But actually, this is something I think is key, because there are some people who have been in positions and wondered why they did not move up. Because, okay, you were fine with completing tasks, but you can't say that on air, irritated a lot of people on the way.
Sure.
And there are people who have left or moved, and that's not the transforming that we want to take place. So it is, I think, is a topic that has to be discussed. And I'm so glad that you two are back here again, making us reflect.
Well, you said something that you're talking about, the moving up part. And I want to make sure that I heard you, and you make sure that I was following your train of thought. Now, were you saying, this to Dean, were you saying that people are not moving up because, I think we lost him? You're still there, Dean?
I'm still here, yes, sorry.
Okay, so you were saying that people are not moving up because they're not reflective, or?
No, there were some, I was saying there are some leaders who were, let's say there was someone who was in a position of getting a Commissioner of Education position.
Right.
Could be a Chancellor of Education in different regions.
Okay.
And they got things done, but it was just completing tasks.
Okay.
Another leader where the two choices were, one was transformational, one made changes, had evidence of making changes, and inspired people along the way, had people under their leadership that were now leading in other areas and transforming in other areas at the top of the position where they were or in the organization. So there was in this country, there was a disagreement on who should be the leader. Do you want a leader who gets things done, or do you want a leader who gets things done but makes a difference, is transformative? So I was just saying there are some people who don't move further because they are transactional and not transformational, because that's where the organization is going, looking for transformation and not transactions completed.
Well, I want to throw something out. Maybe it's a question. I'm not sure it's a question or a statement.
Mm-hmm.
I think that sometimes the two occasionally overlap or intersect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's up to the person who is the leader to make wise judgment calls to decide whether this is a transactional thing that needs to happen at this particular time while I'm leading.
Mm-hmm.
And then at another time, it's something else. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably situational leadership, because there is something called situational leadership.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So depending on the situation,
Yes.
type of leadership strategy that I need to use at this given time to be effective at what I'm desiring to do.
And that is key in your leadership. And even in your leadership as a teacher, realizing the situation and what works, what could have worked in a different situation is not going to work in the present. So that's situational leadership. Let me write that down, because I was just sticking to transformational and transactional.
There are many.
There
are many.
I'm listening, learning.
There's also servant leadership.
Yes.
Robert Greenleaf.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
another one. You know,
Actually, honey, like we actually need
Say
to
that
give
again?
credit. We need to give credit to our ancestors.
Mhm.
He stole that or borrowed it
That's
and
right,
got
he did.
credit from it. But that's an African way of being and thinking and living, that servant leadership, and there are 10 tenets of that. And so I, you know, like I'm always leery with traditional education. They give all of this credit to people from Europe, but a lot of that stuff came from Africa, and we need to
So
be conscious of that.
define it. Define servant leadership, because that could define what that is. What does that look like?
So
Because
servant leadership,
those two words in modern, not even modern day, it doesn't even seem like they go together. You see, like a servant and a leader. Many people think that they're opposing views.
Right.
No, yeah.
Okay, so explain that.
Sure. Like and John, we can piggyback off of this.
Sure.
But servant leadership is that to serve, that your main goal in having this position, having this power is to serve others. And in that, you are always using empathy, you are listening, you are, what else? You're persuasive. You can get people to follow you, you convince them for something for a greater good. And also you're always building the community. Servant leadership is always building the community, empowering others to be better than what they were when you got in contact with them. It is always that when you are no longer there, the work has moved forward. Right? It is not about the person. It is about the mission. It is about the completion. And so we, with society today, you know, we have celebrity leadership. And
Right.
that person is gone, very little takes place after that. That is what John and I talk about as ineffective leadership. Because when you understand it is not about you, it is about the movement. It is about the community. And then when you are no longer there, it still flourishes because you've imparted into the people so that they have been equipped, that they can do it and you are not there.
So servant leadership is not a passive leadership strand.
Mm-mm.
You hear the word servant, a lot of people automatically think, oh, wow, Am I going to be subservient to the persons with whom I work? No, it's not that. It's actually a very active way of moving throughout the organization.
Yes.
So as you are listening, you are empowering.
Right.
You are listening, you are serving and supporting and helping.
Correct.
I mean, so it's this very active movement that is taking place within the organization to get to your desired outcome or your desired goal.
Yeah.
You know, so you're leading with the mindset of what can I do to pour into this person that can get them where they need to be, so
Yes.
to become leaders.
Yes. Yes. And that's good, John. And with servant leadership, it is, if I am the leader, I am never asking anyone to do anything that I am not willing to do myself. Right? And so I'll give you an example of this. We're in COVID in the States and numbers are rising. And so I have some people who work as what people would say underneath me. I tend to see them as lateral with me, just in a different capacity. Nevertheless, I said to them today, I am never going to ask you something that I'm not willing to do myself. And in this instance, I'm not willing to do that. So I want you to know you don't have to do that. Now, if you elect to do that, that is your free will. I'm not saying to you not do that. I am saying to you, I don't think that that is the best thing for us as a group. Yet, if you decide that you want to go ahead and do it that way, I support you, because it is, again, everybody, how they work and what they do doesn't always have to be a replication of being aligned. And I don't want to say aligned, of being the same, right? It could be some diversity, but yet you can still have unity. And I don't think we do enough of that to empower people where they are for them. And so as a leader, I can say, I'm doing this with you. And then the followers say, oh, this person is in this game with me. And then that increases productivity, because people, when they feel like you can say to them to do something and then you do it yourself, it's like, okay, they're invested. And that's another part of servant leadership. It's being invested in what you're asking of others.
And it's very important to also lead from the standpoint, when you're a servant leader, from the standpoint of, I'm not always going to be in this position. You know, sometimes people get on a leadership role and they think that I'm going to be here forever. You know, so I'm going to be here for 20 years. And that's the mindset. And so you lead in that mindset. So it becomes very stoic. It becomes very unproductive. People tend to be very lax.
Complacent, yeah.
Because they're not motivated to do anything because you haven't motivated them.
Right.
So
and that's where you have micromanaging, right?
You have micromanaging, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Then it becomes a whole mess, really.
We don't like to be micromanaged.
No.
I think, but what's interesting is that there are a lot of people, not you, John, but there are a lot of people who say that they wouldn't like to be micromanaged, but given the opportunity to have given the opportunity to share ideas, they choose not to, or to implement programs, they choose not to. Their actions support that they want to be micromanaged.
Yeah, yeah, and that is true. Yeah.
Go ahead.
That is true, Michelle, that there are people who thrive best when someone tells them what to do.
Yes.
There are people who do that. And again, that too is a lack of, not for everybody, but for some people, of being empowered. When you've been disempowered for so long, you don't believe that you have the capacity. When you've just been told what to do all the time, you become complacent or stuck in that way of thinking. And then that becomes your way to operate. And then to get you to move outside of that is very hard, because now you've been conditioned to operate as someone who needs someone to tell them what to do. Now, that's where transactional leadership works well, for those persons who need to be told what to do. So you do what I tell you here, and you'll get this there. You see that transaction? So for some
Yeah.
people that works well, but that doesn't work well for everybody. And then also, like how in leadership, there's this thing called in-group and out-group. And so transformational leadership really, really pays attention to that, because in the in-group, it's like you separate, you do the divide and conquer. And then you know it in organizations, you see it in education, where the leader will favor these people because they agree with everything that they say, and then ostracize these people because they have an opinion that's different from theirs. And then that creates conflict internally. And then that is where transactional leadership also works best, right? Because for those who will do what I say, how I say, they'll get rewarded. Yes.
They got a prize. They got a ribbon.
They got, they got a ribbon. What type
They
of
got a gold star, Dean. They got a gold star.
You got a gold star. What type of leader are you yourself, or what type of leader are you?
I would definitely say transformational with sprinkle servant leadership.
And I will say that I'm courageous leadership and servant leadership, right? And so with courageous leadership, we'll take risk. John can tell you, I will take a risk. And if it's a good decision, yay, I want to repeat it. And if it's not, I've learned a lesson. And so that's one thing I do like about John, because we are different, but yet in a lot of ways we are alike. And so we feed off of that with each other. And the basis for both of us is servant leadership.
Yeah. Definitely servant leadership.
That's one thing I do not do, risk. I'm not comfortable with taking risk, but there are a lot of times when I may say that, and then there are people who will just start listing things. So it's something I need to work on, something I want to develop into. So for those of us who may put ourselves in a box or put ourselves in a category, what advice do you have for us who may limit ourselves because we only think there is one way to lead? We are not aware of or don't recognize. What is the advice you would give to those leaders in that position? Stock.
Boy, well, I'm very big on education and reading, right? A lot of my spare time is spent reading about leadership or YouTubing about leadership. I never feel that you can learn too much about it. So I consider myself a constant learner in terms of what does it mean to lead. So I was asking myself that, I am always defining and redefining what that is. So every situation where I'm placed in to lead, like I said before when I started at the beginning of the program, I self-reflect and I redefine, and I self-reflect and redefine. So one of the things that I would encourage persons to do who are in leadership is to self-reflect and then redefine. Because the whole definition of, if you were to Google now the definition of leadership, there are so many different definitions of it. And you're like, well, is it this one? 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 The way you define it is by your daily practices for yourself in real life, in real terms.
And I concur with John. And I also say that I think that when you're trying to move from one place to the next, to associate yourself with someone who is where you're trying to go. That is very important. And I think in conjunction with that is to have someone who will pull you on the carpet, doesn't matter what you think or how you feel, right? That accountability partner that will just say, you know what, that was a bit shoddy right there. You could do that differently. And you said this 2 years ago and you're still here. What are you going to do now? I think that's very important in leadership, to have someone to help you, because
tell you the truth. To tell you the truth.
Yeah, because we're always evolving. And if we're not evolving, we're stagnated. And so that's what I would suggest, Dean, you know, with what John said, it is always also to have somebody who is already where you're desiring to go, and then to have someone there who will be that truth person, no matter what it is. Yeah.
I think that, and the reason why I was being, you know, being a little humorous when I was saying that, but it's so true, because sometimes what tends to happen is with leaders, like Shayna was talking about in the in group and the out group, sometimes that in group will give you some information.
That's not
They
good.
will make you think that the decision that you just made, Michelle, was the best decision you ever made in your life. And the people in the out group was looking at you like, seriously? That's why it goes back to what I was talking about earlier about credibility.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have the people on the out group questioning your credibility, because they know that the people in the in group know, told you that the decision was jacked up.
Correct.
So now your credibility is on the line.
Right.
You need people surrounded with you who will tell you the truth. It's important.
Very important.
And do we seek out those people and ask people to be in those roles, or do we let it happen by happenstance?
You let it know. This is how I really feel. I feel that situations will just morph on your integral leadership.
Yes.
So when people see your vision, when people understand the mission of what you're trying to accomplish, and you are honest and authentic and trustworthy, and you have proven that, that automatically morph into people just wanting to follow the direction in which you are headed.
Yeah. And I believe, like, how, like, on a spiritual level, that God puts people in our path that will help lead us and guide us and direct us. And it is being open to see that that's what this person is, right? And I think how when we are desirous, like how you said, that you want to be more courageous, now you've put that out there. There's life and death in the power of the tongue. You've spoken it. Now, when that comes to you, your ability to receive it or resist it will dictate where you move from here. And I think sometimes it is like we make statements and we don't understand the power of our words, and utilizing that power. And when it comes, recognizing it and then receiving it, and then saying, okay, this is what I prayed for. This was my request. Now this is here to help me. Am I going to receive it? And like, I get it. John and I, we've been married like 27 years in a couple of weeks. And early on in marriage, he said to me, I'm never going to let you think you're right when you're wrong. And I used to cry because I was used to getting my way. And he was like, I'm never going to let you think you're right when you're wrong. He's held to that. That word that he said to me then, he holds to it now. He never lets me think that I'm right when I'm wrong. And so again, when he talked about being reflective, then now I go back and I'll say, I could have handled that a little differently. Or, I'll say things to clients. I'll say, I want you to sit in that. And so he uses my words that I use on my clients. He uses them on me. I want you to sit into that. I want you to sit there, think about that. And so again, it is that going back and forth and allowing all the relationships that we have that are healthy, because if they're unhealthy, move them out the way, but you can still learn some amazing things, because it doesn't matter. I think we can learn from anything and anybody. And it's just recognizing that I don't need this person in my life, but that lesson right there, oh, I'm taking that with me. Yeah.
So what you're actually saying is that you can learn from bad leadership too. Is that what you're saying, Shayna?
Absolutely.
I'm just putting it out there.
Listen, I was at this job in Bermuda and I had this leader.
Oh God, that's
and
funny.
in my opinion, this leader used her position of power in a way that had people fearful of her.
Right.
And so for me, I'm afraid of nobody but God. I wasn't afraid of my mama nor my daddy. I respected them and loved them, but afraid, no. And so I was leaving that job and they had this event for me. And I said to her, I've learned a lot from you. And what I've learned is how I do not want to be as a leader. I do not want to treat people the way I've been treated by you. I do not want to condescendingly talk to people the way you've done it to me, but you know I corrected you. And so we can learn how not to be from bad leadership. And then what happens, like with bad leadership, if we're not cognizant of what that is and in our lives, we will then turn around and do that to somebody else.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Leadership today on Teacher Talk.
I'm gonna take everything that has been said, and I want to apply it to what happened this weekend. It was a lot of unrest this weekend, right? And I personally don't think that we have been effective when it comes to, people like to label it as gangs. And I think a lot of people label gang related things. They don't really know the definition of what a gang is really. But I want to relate this whole leadership. How have we been effective, especially in the area of education, when it comes to our young people, when it comes to how they feel about themselves, how they feel like they have to refer to violence to get their point across or to express themselves if they're frustrated. Talking about the effectiveness of us. Rate us from 1 to 10. How effective have we been to our young people in the community?
I'm going to say 5 because I'm going to say 5 is a safe space and it's neutral. So I'm not going to say we've been all bad. And we've been all good. I'm going to come to the defense of the young people to say this. I work in alternative education, and one of the mantras that we live by is that all behavior has meaning.
All behavior.
All behavior has meaning. So what's actually happening is that our young people are communicating the message.
They sure
are.
So, but my question is, are we listening? Question is, are we listening? And the other piece along with that is, I don't think that we have allowed our young people to talk. I don't think we've taken the time to allow them to express what their behaviors mean or why they are doing what they're doing. So because I guess we're so busy, right? Because we have to fix the problem. We got to fix it, and we have to fix it by 2021. Because if we don't fix it, you see what I mean? Let's slow it down. Let's have the conversation. Like, hey, what's really going on? You know, so we have to make the decision whether we want a quick fix or we're in it for the long haul. It's almost like the racism thing, right? But people, you had a race forum. Well, yeah, I know you had a race forum, but we need to keep having a conversation because it's a perpetual problem.
Right.
So our program's not going to eradicate the way that young people are engaged in because it's so multifaceted and so multidimensional, the issues. So we need to allow them to talk and have the conversations because all behavior has meaning.
Right. And I agree with that. And I don't want to talk specifically about that, but I want to talk in generalization about that because I'm not physically there. But what I do know, according to what Dr. Martin Luther King says, he says, riot is the language of the unheard. And what I do know is that last week, from pictures, from Facebook posts, there was this Black Lives Matter march in alignment with what is going on here in America. Yet underneath the iceberg in Bermuda, the following week, this erupt. It might seem like it's not connected, but it is. And another tenet of servant leadership is awareness. And I think as leaders, we need to be aware of the undercurrent and the undertone of the hearts of those who are not heard. And so we see it as people who are young people, they're just causing havoc. What real human being wants to just cause havoc? Havoc has already happened to them. And that is an expression to be heard. And so, yes, everybody's not good intent. Everyone is not evil intent. So what do we do with that? Do we, again, just pass all of these Facebook post and send it in the mayhem, and we don't address the issue, didn't just start there. Like when I was getting all of the videos and the clips from it, I actually thought, I said, I would like to know the names of the young people, and not for their names, but to understand their history.
Right.
I want to know what happened to them in high school. Did they graduate from high school? I want to know what happened to them in middle school. I want to know what happened to them in elementary school. I want to know, is there trauma, and how much trauma is in their lives, right? I want to know if they have a relationship with not a parent, with parents. And then what is their support system like? What's going on? There's a cry. And we are so busy trying to march for somebody else, and we're not cradling our souls. And I think, you know, that there needs to be, there just need to be a reframing of what.
Shayna touched on something very, very significant. And as a community, I think we're just asking the wrong question. We keep asking, why are they acting like that? Why are they behaving like that? I don't know the question. The question is, like Shayna said, what happened? Something happened. What happened?
Because everyone has a story.
Everyone has a story.
Everyone has a story.
And then too, Michelle and Dean and John, with this, we understand group mentality, right? And as we're talking about leadership, we know that leadership happens in all capacity of life. And so in all of that mayhem, there was a leader. Someone took the lead, and that group mentality, that where we don't think from transactional leadership, we have to be careful when we just tell children to do what I tell you to do. Don't think about what you're doing or how it's going to affect you. And because that creates group mentality. And then when it manifests in mayhem in situations, we're surprised. Well, you didn't give them a voice in class. They just had to turn in your assignments. When you said it, they didn't get to talk about it. Like, I don't understand learning this way. None of that. Again, it goes all back to relationship. What's the relationship these young people have with members of society as a whole? When has society as a whole had an event for these young people, for them to talk about what's bothering them? COVID has had a lot of people trapped in. And if you are living in a household and it's more people than there is space, that does something to you psychologically. And so where are they going with all of this energy? And if they have been yelled at and hit and traumatized at home, they're just going to repeat it. Social learning, they're just giving what they have learned. And we don't like it because we like to look polished. But again, we have to deal with the undercurrent of the issues. And so the march was great. What next?
Yeah.
What are we going to do next? To lose a life and to act like, you know, oh, it's happening again. What are we going to do differently? And I think as educators, not just as teachers, but as educators, I see educators as anyone that is concerned about their community and they have something to share with other people. That's an educator. I heard a clip from James Baldwin talking to Nikki Giovanni, and she was asking him, how do you teach children this curriculum that you don't agree with? And so James Baldwin said to her, they're not a teacher. Because a teacher finds a way to get the information to the people who needs to hear it. And so as community members, how are we teaching? How are we getting this information out of care and of concern and being aware and using our persuasive position? You know, it's one thing to have a wonderful position, but how are you using that position to help someone who's disenfranchised? And can I say that's the case for all of them? No. But if it's the case for one too many and that person is the leader, there's the mayhem.
You know what stuck out for me is when you said that we do not give them the opportunity to think. In the classroom, they're told what to do. This is a general statement. In the classroom, a well-behaved child is a good child because you did exactly what I told you to do. Don't bother question anything. Don't bother debate anything. You're coming into the classroom, you're sitting down quietly, you're taking everything that I have to say as gospel. Well done, you're well behaved. You're in a well-behaved home. Your mom, you do everything that your mom and dad tells you to do. Yes, you're a well-behaved child. So this whole emphasis on being so well-behaved could mean that if you are in a circumstance where if you've never had the opportunity to exercise your expressing your own opinion, the way you feel about things, that you're susceptible to being led down the forbidden path.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's beautifully crafted what you said, because for the first time, I got it. You know, for the first time, like you know how we talk about this between believing and knowing. I believed it to be true, but just now I know that to be true. Well, are we equipping our children to be able to take a stand on something that they truly believe in, or are we equipping our children just to follow wherever the wind blows?
Yeah.
And then long term, how does that work for them when they get into college, university, in the workplace, in terms of being able to think quick on your feet and have an opinion about something and stand by it and believe it. I think we need to give our students more experiences with being able to express themselves.
Yes.
Conversations around what learning means.
And we have to get away from kafata farant.
Yes.
Whether the fates may lead us. And that's where we have, Michelle knows my opinion on that. That's where we have put ourselves, no, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. That's the box that we were put in to live and to operate and to exist. When we come outside of kafata farant, there are issues. You were talking about what's happening and getting solutions. I was looking at, and I never tried to say or point blame. And looking at the situation, I'm saying, okay, there are people looking. The reason why some of us cannot find the solution is because we have difficulty looking in the mirror. And that's what we saw. We saw reflections of ourselves in the mirror. We may not have been the one to crack somebody over the head with a helmet, but we may crack somebody over the head with a comment. We don't see ourselves as the one stabbing someone, but we will stab someone in the back. So there are, what I saw was a lot of behaviors that some of us may do in the professional way.
That's good.
Which is now translating in the physical way. So it is, like you said, it's disheartening. It's what next? I'm having a conversation. I'm going to tag it on the end of this to put on Facebook and YouTube with Maya Palacio from Media Maya. And she also talked about, Shayna, what next? You know, we had the march. What next? And she is talking about being a avenue for making that connection of the young voice and putting the views out there so people will listen and be informed. So I'm loving the way this conversation is going, because it's going to go right into, as I term, the after show with Maya to celebrate our last show. But in the closing moments, yes, I have 2 more meetings. In the closing moments, what do you want to leave with our listeners on moving from where they are now to where they need to, or their next stage? Because their next stage may not be where they want to be, but where they may need to be. So any advice? Last, you have your last say. John, you go so we can have Shayna finish off.
To wrap it up, well, I would just keep it brief and to say that I would encourage us to develop stronger relationships with our young people.
Mhm.
Take the time to engage them in conversation. You know, let's not have this attitude where they are an inconvenience. You know, because they're not. They are a part of our present and they are part of our future. And we need to invest in them, and not just through programs and initiatives, but give of ourselves, you know, to them and form some relationships with them and start listening to what they have to say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I thought of the passage where Jesus said that the poor you will have always. And I remember as a child reading that, I was like, why would Jesus say that? And as an adult, I'm learning to understand that poor is not just finances. Poor is weakness of thought. Poor is a lack of understanding. Poor is limited options and opportunities. That's poor. And so, how do we assist others who are the disenfranchised, who are the most vulnerable? How do we use our surplus and share? Because if we are our brothers and sisters' keeper, how are we keeping well? And if I'm well and you're sick, that's half sick and half well. And what can we do as a community to help us to become well? And as John said, talking and building relationship, that's foundational. And you can't just expect for it to change overnight. It wasn't created overnight. It took years, months, days, tears, pain to get here. And it's going to take that same length of time, of care, of concern, of service to undo what has been done. And so that's what I would say as a community, like start seeing us as collective and breaking some of the barriers of them because they're young, because it's somebody's child, it's somebody's grandchild. It's an ancestor's great, 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 great grandchild. And how are we making those connections so that what they are doing, they see it as a way that they express themselves, but it's not good for the whole? Do they even feel that they are part of us? Right? And how do we then gather them in so they can feel a part of the community and these maladaptive behaviors subside because they then feel included? Because that's another thing. There's a lot of disenfranchisement of people feeling ostracized and not a part of. And we help people to feel less than. And it's changing that mindset and reframing how we engage with each other. And like you said, Dean, those parts of stabbing, we might not do it physically.
Of the mistreatment.
Right? But the mistreatment. And that's energy. That stuff passes through. And how do we change that? So this poorness of behavior is re-diverted into ways that we want our society to represent.
Michelle, but once you do the thank yous today, Michelle, on our last show, let your voice
yes, exactly. I just thank you guys for coming on once again. It's a honor and pleasure just to be in your presence. And I just don't say that because we're friends / family. It is always a pleasure to be in your presence, to have the dialogue, to have the conversation, to be challenged, to be stretched, to be supported, and all those good things in the good times and the bad times. And understanding the passage, the thing, and this too shall pass, in the good times and the bad times and all of that. So I just say thank you so much. Also, I want to say thank you very much, Dean. The journey was It was amazing. Thank you very much for being a gracious co-host.
Awesome. Yes.
You know, just loved your personality and I loved your character because you truly, one of the things is you always wanted the best for other people. And so I thank you very much for being a very gracious co-host.
Thank you very much, Michelle. You will make me cry, but I thoroughly enjoy co-hosting Teacher Talk live and Teacher Talk behind the radio with you. You were the one that I always thought brought me to a place of, actually, I know we had three co's. We had Tamisha, who was the pedagogy. I was whatever. And Michelle was in the middle. And I always felt that you were the one who brought the whole show into the path that I loved where it was at. You recognize you could live in both worlds. You can live in the pedagogy world. You can live in the whatever. I shouldn't say whatever. I need to get a term for it.
Very adaptable.
Free. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just relaxing and going. So you were always the one that brought me to that place of reflecting, of even looking at some of the things that I said on air, and you would even say, Dean, you said that on air, or we are on Facebook. So you were always that person that I look forward to having to rein me in. And I appreciate that, and I thank you for that. Even with phone call today, you know, you even continued that process. But it has been, like you said, an awesome ride here. I think I've been doing Teacher Talk for like maybe 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, for a while.
It was something that I got into. In the first year, I didn't say a thing. I was so nervous because I didn't recognize my voice. I think we talked about that earlier. And then I was just thrown into, Dean, you need to speak, because there was a new co-host who came the following year. The person doing the board was sick. So I'm like, excuse me, you are not just coming today and being the main person, no way. So ever since that point, I think I relaxed and then just and I'm not saying that because the word is behind me. I think I just relaxed and just let my voice be heard, because I think I was I was going to say product, but I was sometimes I would guess even say side effect or effect of living in that realm where you didn't believe that your voice was heard. So Talk really, really has been a growing experience for me, has been what I needed, because I do recognize the power of my voice. And even now, just the way I talk, I could be in a restaurant and say, can I get an order of whatever? And somebody says, Teacher Talk. So I'm just being blessed by this. I'm looking forward to what's next. I'm glad we had that conversation. So let's see where we can transform.
And also, I want to say publicly, I want to thank Shannon James.
Yes.
Yeah, because I had a conversation, it was the cross country, I can remember it, at Clearwater Middle School, and I said, Shannon, I always wanted to be on the radio. He said, oh, okay.
Right. And they'll call you up. You got to be at the radio station in 10 minutes.
Hello.
Right.
So then I have to publicly thank Shannon for that.
Nice.
And also thank our guests, Shayna and Dr. John. That's right. You always, and I was just so pleased with listening to you last week and previously, because we were first introduced on the I Am series.
That's correct. Yes.
And it's just amazing just to be able to, because Shayna, your aura is inviting to listen to me and to listen to my opinion. You are forceful and aggressive in expressing your opinion.
Excuse me, I'm assertive.
Assertive in aggressive.
Define how I am.
You are assertive in expressing your opinion, but not in the negative sense where you say, no, this is my opinion one way. You don't come across that way and you don't present it that way. So I thank you for that. John, I've always admired you as a leader in Bermuda. Definitely, I find you as a down-to-earth leader. I love where you are now and love that you're working with our young people who some people don't want to work with. So I
Absolutely.
just want to speak blessings over both of you.
Thank you.
And thank you again for coming on Teacher Talk.
And thank you for having us. Our
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure. And I look forward to and I speak forth the good stuff for people who are educators, those who are teachers,
Mhm.
and that we continue on because it is not all doom and gloom. It is a beautiful world. There are some amazing people, and we just have to keep moving and shining the light of love, hope, and our culture, which is an amazing history.
Most definitely. Family,
That's
we
right.
have
We
come.
encourage you to listen when the teacher talks. We are on Facebook Live. This is Mr. Foggo. I am in the after show of Teacher Talk. It is our last show, as you see, on this Tuesday, June the 16th. We're coming at you Tuesday and Thursdays, but we're going to stop all of that. We have come to the end of our shelf life with Teacher Talk. We're going to have to leave it to someone else to come on to have these conversations. Our guest tonight is Maya Palacio from Media Maya. Welcome, Maya. This is our after show, the last show of Teacher Talk live. You know, we came live. You're smiling. We came live after COVID virus, after we were sent home. We thought, I missed the conversation. So I said, we need to still have it. So we thought we'll go live on Facebook, and I'm thoroughly enjoying the platform. Thoroughly. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm smiling because I can remember the days being at Magic 102 Point, yeah, and being with you, Miss Laylor, and wow, the days, the years have gone by.
Yes,
I'm honored.
you was in senior school.
Mhm.
I was gonna say M4, S4, but I'm in middle school now, so I switched the two up occasionally. So
Right.
you was in S4, and we invited you on because we knew you wanted to be a journalist.
Yeah.
You came.
Yeah.
Talk about talk about that experience of being
Oh man,
asked to
that was.
come on the radio.
I remember it so well. Like, it was because of Mr. and Miss Cedarbridge
Yeah.
that we came on air, and then that's when I had mentioned that my career aspirations were to become a journalist. And then you, lo and behold, asked me and to come on board to be like the student representative, the voice opinions for the students, mostly in public school in my area, in high school. And yeah, I jumped at the opportunity. I was so grateful. And then just being there in that atmosphere really got me a feel for audio and radio. I actually ended up doing my honors class in audio in university, actually, in my final year. So I had to do a big documentary using all audio, and that was quite fun. And I did it on Dr. Barbara Ann Hamilton Hinch, who is actually the very first African Nova Scotian to graduate from Dalhousie with a PhD. So I did it on her, and she was only in 2016, so quite recent.
Oh, wow.
Still, yeah. Person I think still only as a Black woman. But yeah, and so I remember being on Teacher Talk in high school, and it was probably some of the highlights of my week. I mean, I remember being an extremely busy student, but I love Teacher Talk, and I always try to make it out there.
And you provided that student view on Teacher Talk, which we needed, and you gave us the report on the sporting events and other events that happened, and you was always on time. People always commented, they listened, they looked forward to listening to you. Now they could see you. Now they could see who this is. And I'm proud of you just to see you grow from that senior school to where you are now. You are part of the press conferences. You have your brand, Media Maya. I see you on, and I see the look of your what you put out, and I'm impressed with that. So kudos to Media Maya for that. Excellent, excellent. So you left us, graduated from Cedarbridge Academy. You ran away to school. You were doing things there. Where did Media Maya, talk us through, how did Media Maya come about?
Oh, that's a good question. It's funny, I can remember the whole Teacher Talk, but I can't remember how I even got the name Media Maya. I think I was mainly just because I was into alliteration.
Mhm.
I may have actually just been looking for a new Instagram name. It probably wasn't anything that serious, to be honest. But I do recall, like, once I finished up in graduation, that was last year, 2019, and I had to do, for graduation requirement, I had to do a internship with a news organization. Now, I wanted to do mine away in the States. Unfortunately, their dates and their timing was not convenient for my school, which was in Canada, and everything kind of got mixed up with that, as in most of them I couldn't apply for, and they were like way later in the days to do internships and not before my graduation, which was necessary. And so I didn't really apply for any Canadian one because I didn't want to stay in Halifax in that area.
Mhm.
And then I ended up applying to Bermuda Broadcasting, and I also reached out to Barmeans. I ended up selecting Bermuda Broadcasting Company because my school needed a firm news organization as a requirement. So I went up with Bermuda Broadcasting Company, and I was there for a time when Gary Moreno was the editor, head chief editor at the time, and working alongside Jasmine Patterson, when those were like two big influences. Jasmine is an amazing journalist. She's so kind, heartfelt, and I've known her for a while because of Field Hockey together, but working with her was a really great experience, especially being the only Black woman in the
Yes.
up at BBC. So it was a great experience, like, as female journalist, to like learn under her and learn from her. So that was really great. And after that had completed, and I went back to graduate, and I came back home, and I really wanted to travel back to Toronto and try to gain experience out there. And then COVID-19 started to happen, like, kind of quick when I had planned my leaving date for sometime in April. And then I was just like, well, I'm here. I'm here for now. And I knew that I wanted to continue doing journalism and reporting. But I knew that the way I wanted to do it and focus it wasn't what news organizations were doing here on the island right now. My main platform has to do with educating and getting the younger voices involved with politics and news and what's going on the island and why we should care. So I've always been pretty active on my own platform, just saying like, hey, this is happening. How do you guys feel about it? And everyone will comment and give me comments anonymously. And then I post them up and I ask people, do you agree? Do you disagree with this comment? Do you have something to inform, enlighten us about this or that, the other? Because many people who do follow me, like, do have jobs and positions in different places, and they could enlighten each other. So my platform, as I've now kind of called it, is almost like a classroom with no teacher, and we're all just teaching each other basically and learning off of each other and what our experiences and what our jobs have taught us. So that's kind of where Media Maya kind of came about.
Excellent. And looking at what we see today, you came on Teacher Talk with the student voice. You're talking about you want to be a voice for the community to enlighten and inform. Talk about what we are seeing now. There are a lot of opinions going on out there about there's a problem, what the problem is, what the solution is. What is your take on what we are seeing right now?
My take on everything that's going on right now, it's going to come from a social media perspective, like Twitter and Instagram. And because I haven't necessarily got I don't think anyone's really got the public viewpoint right now as being locked up because of COVID. But what I see is, especially after the Black Lives Matter march and the recent events at Heroes Weekend, which have been really disheartening. But what I see is a lot of what next. That's basically the whole gist of it, is everyone not really having a cohesive plan as to what the next movement is going to be, or the change that we all want to see. We're not necessarily, people feel like people aren't organized in the overarching goal as to what Bermuda wants to achieve.
Now, with what Bermuda needs to achieve, do you feel that your voice and the voice of the young people are heard? And if not, how do we get, because for my generation, I grew up, I felt like my voice wasn't even listened to. I did, even like now to this day, I'm just going into and I think it developed from Teacher Talk, that my voice is needed, my voice is heard. And then being involved in politics, I realized my voice is needed and my voice is heard. talk about, I lost my train of thought. That still happens now and again.
I wasn't gonna say it.
It happens more now, but don't even know where I was going with that. I'm saying what Bermuda needs, your voice. Do you feel that the young people's voice is being heard today? Because a lot of times we think the solution is with the seniors or those who we see in politics.
So here's my perspective on that. I think the younger voices are getting out there. Don't think anyone's really doing the work to listen though, because our platform's different from the older generation. You're not going to hear our opinions on the daily newspaper that you're flipping through. You're not going to hear our opinions, let's say in the House of Assembly even, because there's not many young representatives there, probably one or two, either being Senator Dwayne Robinson and MP Jason Hayward. That I would categorize them in the younger voices-ish. There's definitely some younger ones there. And even for the youth parliament there, I don't even think they have a big enough platform to have their viewpoints heard. And it's just that, like, we are making the statements, but maybe there's a disconnect. In my opinion, there is a disconnect. But me personally, I'm trying to get those opinions out there, and I'm in a position now where I'm face to face with the premier and all the ministers constantly, and I'm talking to them and giving them the opinions of the youth and what this, that, and the other is. So I mean, that's where I'm trying to make that connect. But
well, I have noticed a difference in the news conferences with the introduction of this new voice. Because I know there was a time I was listening every single day, but it became too much because of, with COVID virus, being sent home myself for safekeeping. My mom just had a stroke recently, so I had to think about her. So it just became over so much. But your voice I was trying to think of some alliterational thing. It was just so calming just to hear a young person in the throes of it all asking those pertinent questions. So, and now people have even said they see the premier smile when you say Maya from Media Maya asking those questions. How does that make you feel to be right in the mix of what's going on with this global pandemic? It's not just in Bermuda, but with this global pandemic. How does that make you feel as a young journalist?
Oh, no one's ever asked me that question before. I guess it makes me feel a little bit of pressure, but responsibility. Like, I understand that when I first arrived in there, that I was the youngest, that even though I'm not meaning to, I do hold a lot of representation for my age generation as to how I present myself in the conferences. So I felt that bit of pressure. But I also felt that this is where I want to be and what I want to do. So, put your game face on in a sense, because I mean, I'm not going to pay all this money for schooling to not use the degree. But also I knew that I wanted to, like I always say, I always wanted to make a difference and do what needs to be done, no matter how nerve-wracking it might feel. So being in that space, I know I'm around a lot of powerful people who can make a lot of influence. But at the end of the day, I have to look at people as also just being people. I mean, that is also part of being a journalist, is to see people for more than what that one staple of a label that they are. So it's actually humanizes the experience of being with people up at the high, because you got to remember, sometimes people believe that government or politics or MPs are like above the people when they are not. They work for the people. So in that sense, you got to look at it at all perspectives. So when I'm there, the very first day there, I was very nervous. I must have been like shaking before I pulled out my mask to talk into that mic. But it was also just a calming sense that this is where I need to be. These are all people. We're all trying our best here, and we just want to get this information out to the country.
Excellent. And you're doing a great job of getting the information out to the country. Heroes Weekend was last weekend. We haven't had a national hero named, a new one named, but we do have national heroes. I'm trying in my classroom to keep that ever present in their minds, in the middle school students. And there are some people I have had conversations with. John Swan. I've had conversations with Dr. Paulo Camara-Cafego, Dame Lewis Brown Evans I've had conversation with, and it is just exciting just to even have conversations with people that have been called national heroes.
Yeah.
As a young person, how is it, and from your viewers, from your followers' perspective, how are they seeing National Heroes Day and National Heroes Weekend?
There hasn't been much talk about National Heroes Weekend on my own page per se. The only people that I've seen really bring highlight to it, and I have to big them up for it, is Burmeans, with Dejana and Kian. So it's just, and I'm very grateful for that. And it's actually, I'm glad that you brought it up, because I was actually going to do a quick live and video and interview story about Howard Academy and Skinner School, because Dr. You have to say
Camara-Cafego.
Camara-Cafego. I wish I had it just in front of me.
Right.
Yes, Dr. Paulo Camara-Cafego and also Sir John Swan. They went to Howard Academy. And I recently just learned this information like a week ago, before Heroes Weekend, because I was right in Devonshire area, and I didn't even know the school was still there, or the Skinner School, and I didn't even know the history of it at all. And I was thinking to myself, like, wow, I wish I would have learned this. Somewhere in the back of my mind tells me my mother may have probably told me this years ago, because Howard Academy sounds extremely familiar. But to go to the school and then to go to the other Skinner School, just schools that were built because persons were being rejected from Berkeley Institute, and then knowing that history still is there for Berkeley Institute, because they can actually still reject students, and then the students would go to Cedar Ridge Academy. But back in the day, it was once you got rejected from Berkeley, like that was it for your education. And then that's how Skinner School kind of began, because people asked the gentleman to start it up and start teaching people. And then after it got kind of big and expanded, even though a lot of people didn't want the school to be a part of the history or to be even up and running, and then they moved down the hill and into a bigger, still smaller building, and it's right behind Kaleidoscope if anyone wants to go to it, but yeah, in Devonshire. And that was Howard Academy, and it got its name to Howard Academy because most of the young boys there, who were mostly boys in black, there were some females there, wanted to name it after one of the prestigious black universities away. And Howard Academy was one of the names, and they kind of decided, because a lot of the boys were named Howard at the time in the school, they just decided on Howard. Yeah, so this is the information that I was told, and I was still kind of looking through it, and I'm hoping to actually speak to Glenn Fubler, because I was told that he knows a lot more about the school and the institution. But I was just surprised at this history and this knowledge. I'm just like, so you're telling me one of the greatest civil rights movements persons that came out of Bermuda, Dr. Paulo, went to this institution? Like, that's so crazy to me. And then Sir John Swan as well, and they're both national heroes of Bermuda, and they both, to my knowledge, were rejected from Berkeley and went to this school, and then became such great leaders and pivotal men in our movement in our history. And that just like blows my mind, because I'm just like, and now the school itself is like it has become like a sewing shop or something. I went there just today, actually, with my friend who is the great nephew of Dr. Paulo Camara-Cafego. Yeah. So, and he didn't even know most of that history, that his great uncle even went to that school. So it's just like, wow. And I'm only grateful, I only know this information because I still work part-time in Noah's Ark, and my boss there, Carol, her great grandfather was the original teacher who started up Skinner School. So, and then all those links just connected.
Yes.
Yeah, and all this history just came out, and I'm just like shocked that I wasn't learned all this. But yeah.
Excellent. It's a lot of things that we were not taught in our schools, and it was all part of the plan, I say. You know, if you don't know your history, you don't know where you are now, and you don't know the power that you have right now. So, but no, it is exciting to see you develop as a journalist. I know we are doing this after show, but we did it earlier because you have to go to the conference, the press conferences that they're having tonight. Don't want to hold you up, but is there any last pressing things that you want to bring up before you get going? I don't want you to say, oh, why are you late today, Maya?
I'm never late. I'm usually always the first one there.
Excellent, excellent.
That's why, but I'm gonna be a little late today, but that's okay. That's okay. One of the things I probably just want to leave with everyone is, for the younger generation, our voting power is extremely powerful right now. If we can all come together and set our own demands as to what we need for our future, that would hold so much in our voting power. And to also get yourself registered to vote. You turn 18 in order, get yourself registered to vote. Even if you decide never to vote, I mean, I encourage you to vote, but just to have it done is such an ease off your mind. And lastly, just, you know, if you are interested in journalism or any type of writing form in English, feel free to reach out to me anytime. Instagram is @MediaMaya_, or you could just type in Maya Palacio. I'm sure you'll find me. But yeah, and if you ever interested in even working together, you got a story, want to collaborate, want to learn something, I'm totally open for that.
Excellent. And we have Michelle just popping in. Michelle.
Yes, Layla.
Hi, Maya.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
I am doing pretty good. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. I listened to you, Media Maya, at the press conferences. Doing well.
Thank you
Doing
very much.
well. How's it going?
It's going really good. I'm about to hop off soon though, because I got to get over to the press conference.
Right.
Thank
We
you.
definitely have to catch up.
Yes, definitely.
Good to see you.
When you have your show, you're gonna have to call us on, and we will just have a continue the conversation there.
Continue the conversation.
But
yes.
all the best, Maya. It is so exciting as a teacher to see you develop. You entered Mr. and Miss Cedarbridge, one of my babies that I started at Cedarbridge Academy. You won. You ran away to school. You got your education. You had time with us at Teacher Talk. You want to be a journalist, and here you are, Media Maya. Great job. This is just a start. This is just a start, and I believe that you will go far because you have always been a student that was open-minded. You thought, you were a critical thinker, definitely creative. So just continue on with that. Definitely prayers for you. Be strong and just go out there and do what you got to do, Maya.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, it's been nice talking to you. Take care.
Right, take care, Maya.
Bye.
Awesome. See you later. Bye-bye. Family, we have come to the end of our stint as Teacher Talk hosts. We hope that something we have said over the years will have you talking and transforming until we come back again. But until then, we want to tell you to have a good night and encourage our young people to listen.
And a Teacher Talk.